Welcome to Behind the Smile with Ash Butterss, a podcast designed to reveal the truth behind the masks we wear. Together, we look to demystify the human mind and its behaviours in relation to mental health, trauma and addiction. My name's Ash and I'll be your host as we uncover the real stories of people's pain and the steps they've taken to live a life of freedom in recovery. From sobriety to spirituality, join me each week as we uncover the reasons why people seek recovery and how their lives have changed by living one day at a time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Smile. My guest today is Matt Pink. Matt is a father of 5, an alcohol-free coach, and the co-founder of Dryy, an online and offline community that welcomes anyone wanting to try an alcohol-free lifestyle. Matt has taken the sober world by storm. Since starting his Instagram account, Better Life Guy, in 2021, and amassing a significant following, he's also pioneered some of the largest sober events ever seen in the UK. Matt is also the author of the Amazon best-selling book, Better Me, Better You, and is on a mission to help as many people as possible remove alcohol from their lives. Now, dialing in from the UK, I'd love to welcome Matt onto the show. Matt, welcome to Behind the Smile. How are you this morning?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for having me on. We've been trying to get this done for a while, haven't we? But we made it.
That's exactly right. We've made it. We're here. I'm super excited that you've given us your time to join us here today. You've got a big story to share, and I'd love to dive right into it. So, Matt, before we get into the juicy part of your story, I'd really love for our audience just to get to know you a little bit better. Can we kick it off with, where do you live? What does an average day look like? And what do you do for fun?
Okay, so I live just outside London in a place called Bedford, and I'm in London pretty much every day. It's where I'm based. And an average day in my life is completely different one day to the next. There's no such thing. I have the most erratic lifestyle. Partly because I can't sit still, and partly because I can't stop creating things, and partly because I have 5 kids. So all of those things combined means that one day, like
it's
today,
amazing.
The school run coffee podcast today. Tomorrow I'm going to Brighton to an alcohol-free bar that's invited me down. The next day I'm doing some filming in London. So it really is different day to day. But then the thing I do for fun is this as well, which I think, about 5 years ago, I sort of went on a bit of a mission to try and do what I like doing every day of my life. So I thought, how can I get out of a professional hamster wheel, out of some golden handcuffs, and into something that I just love doing every single day? And so I went on a bit of a 5-year mission to do that. So now I'd say pretty much I've made it, which is something I'm proud of, because every day I just love doing what I'm doing, and I'm helping people and trying to change the world a little bit.
Yeah, that's pretty special. I think it's people's dreams to one day be able to do something that is not just the thing that generates an income and that allows them to survive, but something that they're passionate about. And, for me, I call it my dharma. It's my purpose. And I feel like I too have found that in the space that I'm working in now. But it took me getting sober to be able to discover that, because prior to giving up alcohol, like, I didn't even know what my purpose was. I was kind of just on that hamster wheel, right? And sometimes you don't even know how disconnected you are from your own reality.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's exactly what I feel passionate about helping people with now. It's not even the alcohol thing is like, yes, remove it. Let's help you do that. But I'm more interested in helping people to find an exciting future. And I think if you can find an exciting future, then as a byproduct, you end up not having room for alcohol because you get so excited about your future, if you know what I mean. So that's kind of my main purpose.
I know completely what you mean. I'm really excited to dive into this conversation today. Matt, I have asked you to bring in a photo, and we kick off every episode of Behind the Smile talking about the photo that our guest has brought in today. Now, this photo is from a time in your life where you were hiding behind a smile. So you were projecting one version of yourself to the outside world, but the reality was you were struggling internally. Can you describe for our audience who are listening right now, what does the photo look like and what was actually going on for you at that time in your life?
Yeah, so it's a photo of me and my wife on holiday, but it was when we first got together, and it was only probably a year since I'd split up with my ex-wife and sort of gone through the whole when do we see the kids? How does that work? Trying to settle into a new lifestyle in a new town with a new person. And I was drinking and using drugs a lot at that point. At its probably worst, I would say, because of all the stresses and strains of life. And uncertainty about where I was going to be, in how was life going to ever be the same again. And that was the photo that stuck out, because we were on holiday, so we were smiling, we're tanned, it's in Turkey, we had all the kids with us, but equally that was just before I then ended up going sober, probably about 6 months before I went sober, because it was just there was a lot of drinking involved on that holiday. And we were trying to do the right things by taking the kids on holiday, which we did, and the kids had a great time. But it just, when I look back at it, it was just one of those moments where it had all fallen down and it was all starting to rebuild again at the same time. But I'm proud to say that now, I'm happier than I've ever been. And me and my wife have built a great life. We've got our own child now. We've got just the most amazing lifestyle with each other and the family. So it's all worked out well. But at that point, I was a mess inside, I would say.
Do you think that you were cognizant of what was going on at that time? Like, did you put it together? Like, I'm drinking too much and this is why I'm feeling like crap? Or was it like, I'm stressed out, I've got all this stuff going on, I'm going to drink to take the edge off, and as a byproduct, I'm feeling a bit crappy because I'm hungover, or however that played out?
Yeah, I don't think I ever really zoomed out enough or stopped drinking long enough to think that it was that was maybe making it all worse, because I just remember thinking, right, get up, what are we doing? Let's go and have a beer by the pool. Let's get to the next step. I think when I met my wife, I was very aware that it was the right thing to do, and we knew that we were right together. We knew it was I'd been told I had a crazy story which we might go into, but I was told by the psychic that she was the right path for me to take. And so I sort of knew it was all going to work out, but equally it was very early doors and everything was still having to be rebuilt. So,
okay, hang on a minute. You've got to tell me this psychic story. What happened there?
So, I have said this a few times before. I think it's even in my book as well, but it is a crazy story that when my son died, unfortunately, in 2013. So it was a really tragic start to the story. And I'd battled with I'd been to some of the most expensive counselling sessions in London, seen some of the best people in the world, but I just couldn't get my head around counselling or talking. And when obviously something like that happens, it's super tragic. And you look around and you look at your wife who's also broken, you look at your parents and they're broken, and you look everywhere around me. I was looking up for some support, but everyone else is crumbling as well. So I thought, right, okay, I just need to just drink my way through it and get through each day and hopefully come out of it at the other end. And 2 years later, I'll be fine. But it didn't obviously really work out like that. But what I did find was I found some sort of, as an act of sort of desperation, I went to see a psychic because I thought, why not? I'd seen all these other people and nothing would work. Nothing made me feel better. And my mum had been to see some sort of medium or psychic before. And I thought it was just a load of shit. And they were going to tell you your nan's, your great nan's there and she'll speak to you. But I went and it was the most incredible half an hour of my life. She didn't know who it was. I just booked in. My name is Matt. That's it. Went in and she just told me all this stuff that was really relevant to my life, really weird stuff about my career and about an uncle that I had that was spot on, who died in a car crash, crazy stuff that I was like, wow. And then at the end of it, she coming towards the end of the sort of session, she said, I've got someone here for you. And she was like, it's your great nan. I was like, of course it is. But she was like, she's holding something. She wants to show you. And I was like, what is it? And she said she's holding your baby. And I just burst out crying. And I was like, what? And then she was like, he's a reoccurring spirit. He's fine. He wants you to know that he's all right. And I was just could not stop crying for that was it. I just exploded. And but at the end of that session, I was like, wow, this is the first time I felt a sense of relief, because I didn't identify that it was as much about knowing that he's okay. That's one of the hardest things when you're a parent, you lose a child. It's are they all right? Which is something I didn't really know. I was just more grieving. But when I sort of heard that he was okay, I sort of had a sense of relief. And I said to her at the end, I said, can I come back next week or something? Or is that not how this works? And she just held my hand and said, if we ever need you, we'll come to you. And I thought, it's weird. And I didn't think anything of it. And then fast forward a couple of years, I had like a couple of years of like heavily drinking, like, that was a moment in time where there was relief, but I was back into the drug cycle pretty much straight away.
Yep.
And then when I'd split up with my ex-wife and I'd like just be literally sofa surfing, I had like a bag of stuff. I didn't know where I was sleeping. I was in central London in a bar that I was always drinking in. I went outside and just to have a cigarette, and I was with my friend Ryan, and this guy just came up to me out of nowhere. And he was like, I need to speak to you. I need to speak to you. I need to speak to you. And he was like speaking really fast. And he was holding this bit of paper in my hand, and he was holding my hand while he was talking to me. And I thought it's a bit weird. Like, I thought he was like going to try and take money off me or whatever, but anything of it. And then he was like, you need to stop doing these things. You need to stop doing these things, and you're going to have a very long life. And he was like, sort of doing the drinking sign, the smoking sign, the drug sign. And he was like, if you stop doing these things, you've got a very good life ahead of you. You're going to help a lot of people. You're going to live till you're 96. You're very close to a flower, very close to a flower, very close to a flower. And I was like, what? And then he said, there's a girl, you need to go with K. I'm getting K, the letter K. And he was telling me all of these things. You've got 2 sisters, no brothers, 2 sisters, no brothers, 2 sisters, no brothers. I was like, and he was like sparring. In the end, cutting the long story short, because he was there a while, he sort of just disappeared. And I opened this bit of paper in my hand, and it said flower equals Lily, which is my daughter's name. K equals Kirsty, which is now my wife's name. And he had written various other things. And he'd drawn a star at the bottom, and I just had a star tattoo.
Oh, wow.
For my son. So like, I was like, what? But basically what happened in that moment was he, like how I describe it, is like he put me back on the track, if you like, because I was lost. I didn't give a shit if I woke up the next day or not. I was flirting with death without having the courage to actually do anything about it. And when he said that, I sort of called Kirsty, and I mean, we were seeing each other anyway, but I was like, okay. And I had nowhere to stay. She was like, just stay with me. And that was pretty much moved in with her, like on the spot. And then he said, like, stop doing this, and you're going to help people, and you live till this time. And I was like, okay. So I sort of almost took his instructions as like gospel. Wow. I felt like, okay, I can do this. And I felt like, yeah, I am someone. Yeah, I'm going to help someone. Yeah, I'm going to live tonight. So I had that like resurgence, and that was the start. That was like my rock bottom, but equally the start of the comeback.
Yeah. And that was your sign. Like, do you believe that was your son or that medium or someone speaking through that human to you that day?
Yeah, I think it was for sure. I mean,
yeah,
that was, and I didn't tie it back initially to the conversation she'd had with me when she said, we'll come to you. And I think at that time, on reflection, that was a desperate time. That was a rock bottom moment. And that was definitely for sure something in that. And I'm a big believer in spirituality. I'm not a religious person, but I am a spiritual person. And I know that stuff like that happens. So that then helped me do like things like meditate in the future. And, really sort of, if I ever have any time of struggle now, I just go out for a run and talk to the sky. I find it super empowering knowing that I'm not even in control of this ship. They are. So why am I getting so in my head?
Exactly right. There's a sense of freedom for me when I can just hand it over and know that I don't need to run the show, and like the weight of the world actually isn't on my shoulders. It's that sense of freedom and that lightness that I'm able to carry myself around with, and then direct my attention to like, where can I be of service? Like, where can I actually be useful, rather than being caught up in my own worries and my own thoughts all day long.
Yeah, exactly. And it's super comforting. And I recommend that to anyone that doesn't do it, just open yourself out to the sort of spiritual world and realize that it's all out there for you as well. And nothing's happening to you, even the bad things, I can look at. And I think that's where I feel so grateful now, is that, when I lost my son, obviously that's probably the worst thing that can happen to anyone. I had a nice house and I was married and I thought it was all right. It wasn't, but I thought it was. And I thought I had 2.4 children. But when I lost that, I really couldn't see, losing your son, losing your house, losing your marriage is like, where do you go from there? But now I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. Like, after all those things have happened, which I think if you can do that after all of those, lows, to come out so high, I think is hope for anyone.
Absolutely. Like it just goes to show that you really can survive through the darkest days. You touched on this idea of spirituality and that being a really vital support tool in your life today. So for somebody listening who hasn't dipped their toe into the spiritual world but is open to the idea, you sort of touched on meditation. What are the ways in which, how did you access it for the first time? Because I'm imagining you probably weren't much of a spiritual guy when you were still out there.
Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah, 100%. In fact, if my friends ever listen to this, they'll be like, "What the fuck?" They just don't understand like at all. But how did I start it? It's a good question. I think probably with some guided meditations. I think in the early days. I mean, you're talking sort of over 3 years ago now. So I think it was guided meditations to start with because I found them super easy. Because it's something I just wanted to explore. You know, when you stop drinking, you got more time. So I just sort of thought, right, chuck on a YouTube and put my headphones in, and then I just let them do the work. So, and then after I got more comfortable doing that, I started flirting with the idea of doing my own meditation, which I still do now. And that comes in different forms as well. I can sort of almost meditate when I'm driving, which is something I can go into a zone. I can do it after a run. Like I said, to talk to the sky after a run. I do that sort of once a week after a long run. And I find that that's my most spiritual time because I've got that serotonin of rushing through my body because I've just done the run. I'm open to it. Everything's engaged and I feel like super connected. So I stop a mile away from home and I just walk and I just talk to the sky and people think, who is this guy? I used to like really worry about who was around. Now I just walk in there, palms up, like having a good catch up. And also just thanking, that's what I always say. I always start by saying thank you for everything I've got. Like I'm so grateful for the life I've got. I'm so grateful for the health of myself and my children and my wife. And like we've just had a newborn baby. So quite often we'll say like, keep her healthy for me. Like, cause obviously a bit of like trauma still there. So that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I think what you've really touched on there is just how accessible it really is. And guided meditations, I was the exact same. I remember I used to try and meditate when I was still drinking and I'd set my alarm to wake up early in the morning to do it before work, but I'd be so like viciously hungover that I'd be sitting there and my mind would just be going crazy. And that's if I'd even managed to not snooze my alarm 20 times. And it would always be I was never able to tap into that connection that I was reaching out for, that I was seeking, because I was so disconnected. And then I got sober and I started meditating, and now like meditation is just such a vital part of my daily life, and it's something that I love to tap into. But I still go to guided meditations a lot of the time because, like you said, they do the work for you. You can put on a guided meditation and all you have to do is listen to the voice and be guided, as opposed to sitting there and having to be really focused on trying to watch your own thoughts. So I love that tip. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, I liken it to, I'd say when people drink, they've got like a tin hat on. Like that's how I always say, because I think that energy flows like through the ground, through your feet, through and back up through your head and up to the sky. And I think if you put a tin hat on, that's what I think of drinking. As soon as you stop drinking, you take your hat off and you've got that full connection and you sort of remove that glass ceiling and everything opens up.
I love that.
I think it's important to say as well that I don't think you have to be sober. I think this is my new slant on things, is like you definitely don't have to be sober. People, and I encourage people now to take breaks from the booze. I think I've come to realization that the world isn't going to be sober. Like that's just, that was my hope at first, because I thought I'm sober. This is great. Everyone should do this. And now it's like, actually, I've got friends and relatives that just will take a month off, take 2 months off, maybe don't drink in the week, maybe have alcohol-free drinks in January, whatever. But I think that the best thing about when you stop drinking is the next day you're in the game. Like the next day after you stop drinking, you're technically sober, whether you're a year or 2 years or two days. You can still do this. So I suppose I'm just saying it because I don't want people to think I'm not sober, I can't meditate. You know, if you don't drink for a day, try meditating for a day.
I love that. I actually love that. I think that everybody's relationship with alcohol looks different, and there are no two people that are the same. And whilst we can find similarities and we can find drinkings in each other's stories, you have to do what is right for you. And there are plenty of people that I know within my inner circle that drink a lot, but they can also stop. and they, they don't know it. Whereas I couldn't stop. And when I tried to, I couldn't. And I would tell myself I wouldn't, and I would. And there were broken promises, and there was shattered self-esteem, and there was all of the consequences that came along with it. So for me, it's just not an option. But if that's not your reality, then by all means, continue drinking, monitor your relationship. And like you said, everything that I talk about, that you talk about, whether it's writing a gratitude list, whether it's exercise, meditation, spirituality, all of that is available no matter what your relationship with alcohol looks like. And it's all going to help at the end of the day.
Exactly. That's an important message.
Hey, Matt, I'd love to take it back a moment just so that I can get a little bit more of an understanding of the person that you are today. I always like to go back to those moments as a child, little Matt. Was there anything significant or any moments that you feel shaped the person that you are today?
I think I'm very lucky to have good parents. And I think I had a blessed childhood. Like, I wasn't particularly privileged. I didn't get everything I wanted, but I had a nice house, nice family, parents still together. And I think that's shaped a lot of who I am. I'm very much part of my dad, part of my mum. But also, I think taking it back to drinking, they were big drinkers. So I think the environment I grew up in, we had a bar in my house. Like, they had an actual bar, pool table, darts board. Like,
Same.
Really, ashtrays, like the beer towels on the bar, optics, the full shebang. So, I mean, I was young in that environment. I thought it was really cool. And obviously they had their friends over, and I'd look at them. They were super social. Every weekend there'd be different friends over. They'd be drunk, playing the guitar on the tennis racket, like just drunk fun. And as a kid, I just used to think, wow, that's well fun. I can't wait till I do that. And I've said this, I think this is in my book as well. I remember doing getting my own house and doing a barbecue and being like 18 and, getting everyone around and thinking, this is where I do it. And I specifically remember thinking, this is shit. Like, I thought it was much more fun to watch than it actually was. You're busy trying to clear stuff up, and you're filling people's drinks up, and you're making sure there's stuff in the fridge, and you're like, it's not the fun I looked at as a kid and thought. And I remember specifically, I must get better and better, or you must have to drink more, or whatever. And sort of going on that 20-year period of like trying to figure out how to have fun as much as when I was a kid. So I think all of that, I think my parents and that whole environment was shaped who I am, because I think they're nice people, and I'd like to class myself as a nice person, and they had a lot of fun, and I like to have a lot of fun, and there's not much more to it. There's never been a specific moment in my childhood that has shaped anything that I can consciously remember.
Matt, what did alcohol do for you? Like, I want to know on an inner like feeling level, like when you drank, how did it make you feel?
Do you know what? I never really liked drinking that much. I can't ever say I was a drinker for the taste of it, because I wasn't. I used to just drink the feeling of it. And it used to feel, and I think that as well, people have different experiences with alcohol in terms of how they feel. So I was more of a gut warming person, like physically. So I'd feel relaxed in my gut. And I think some people, it goes straight to their head, whereas mine was sort of like more of a comforting thing. So I wasn't particularly drinking. People that go to their head, I think they become like then the crazy outgoing party goers. Whereas I was more like plotted up in the chair, chilled out, relaxed. That was sort of why I did it. It sort of take the edge off whatever was going on in the world, and then I'd carry on. And I think the problem I had with it was I wasn't very good at it. I wasn't a big drinker, so I can't. Four beers was more than enough for me, and that meant that I would then move on to other things like spirits or eventually Coke, because everyone in London does, and everyone in the UK, like, it's just rife. I'm sure it's over there as well, although it's expensive in Australia, isn't it?
It's bloody expensive. But I tell you what, I was the same. Like, I would do Coke to be able to drink more. It was almost a way of like managing my alcohol in some really convoluted way.
Yeah, but I was exactly the same. I was just riddled, like, it was everywhere. I used to work in the fashion industry, and it was just like, we'd go for lunch, and no one would eat anything, but there'd just be a packet passed around, and that was it. And stay there for the afternoon or the evening, and then obviously, like, being a person who can't really switch it off, I would just carry on through the night and then into the next day, and like 2 days later, and it's like, wow. Looking back now, it's crazy, really. So yeah, that's what it is.
What impact was that having on your mental health?
I think it was destroying it from the sort of inside. Really, I think it was. I always talk about alignment and how I think the best version of ourselves is when we're aligned with who we are. And I think you go through life, as you go through new experiences, you start tailoring off, and you meet new friends, and you become a new version of yourself, and you become a new. And once you've redeveloped and redefined and become a different person about 10 times, as you do in life, you drift further away from who you truly are. And I think that's what it did for me. It accelerated that line. So I was moving away all the time. And then once I started doing drinking drugs and getting them cycles, I was moving way out of alignment with myself. And that therefore made me very lost. And I couldn't really identify who I was again. And I was questioning, like, why am I behaving like that? That's not you. Why would you say something like that? That's not you. And doing things that are really out of character. I think that was happening more and more towards the end. And therefore, it became like I had to sort of stop them to just evaluate what was going on, because it was a path of self-destruction, really.
So since you have let go of the drinking and the drugs and you've started to really get clear on the person you are today, like, who is Matt today compared to that Matt? What's changed, and what's like the key takeouts of what you've learned about yourself?
I think I was super materialistic about stuff before. Like, everything, happiness lived externally. And it's one of my frustrations with people in life that I still see on such a big scale, where people just think they'll be happy when they get that next top or dress or car or house. And actually, I've come to the conclusion that I'm happy now. I'm happiest. I'm happiest I've ever been. And I lost everything financially in like the mess of it all. I don't even own a house now. I rent a house. I don't own a car. I don't have a fancy watch. I don't have any fancy shoes or trainers. Like, I'm just me, and I'm happiest when I'm sort of with my family, having a coffee with my wife, out for a run, all the things that, don't really cost anything or very little. That's my ideal situation. And I like to explore. I like to do things with my family. I like to learn new skills. I think that's something I was 40 this year, so I've sort of had my next chapter of life, 40 to 50, is going to be about seeing as many places as I physically can. I've already done a lot of traveling in my sort of younger days. Me and my wife are sort of like really keen to get to as many cities in Europe as we possibly can, because it's easy. I learned how to ski this year, which is something I'm excited to go back skiing next year. I'm going to learn a language. Just going to keep evolving as a person, because I think that's my happiest place, when I'm getting fitter, I'm looking after myself, I'm learning, exploring. But equally, I see my life as like a pie chart. I think people go through phases where they try and be career focused for 10 years or focus on their kids for the first few years of their life. I feel like my pie chart is quite evenly distributed. So I'll make sure I spend enough time with my wife and kids. And if I'm not, that becomes the priority. I don't leave that. That's sort of my thing. And then, what work stuff fits in around that, and health and fitness sort of fits in around that. And it's all kind of evenly distributed throughout the week. But it gives the best version of me. And also, lastly, I like to create. I figured out whenever I'm stressed about anything, I just go to a create mode. And as soon as I start creating, as soon as I get a bit of paper in front of me, I just become much happier. And I figured that out recently as well. So I'm still a work in progress, but I've definitely realised that happiness is an inside job.
Oh, it sounds so cliche, doesn't it? But it truly is. That's been the same experience for me, when I realised that what I had been seeking all along was that inner contentment that I was trying to find in the bottom of a bottle, and it was never going to be there. In fact, alcohol kept me disconnected when what I was truly seeking was connection. And what's also really cool about all of those things that you've described and that inner contentedness is it's sustainable. Like, to me, all of the, like, if it's career, if it's even relationships or cars, clothes, whatever, when it's outside of you, it's never enough. Like, you achieve the thing and then you want the next thing, and then it's the next thing. And I think it's this constant striving, which is unattainable, which creates that void and that emptiness and that dissatisfaction or that dis-ease, which you hear so many people talk about. And then they end, which is why they fall into these different habits. And it's not just alcohol. It can be anything. It can be sex, food, shopping, like whatever your vice is. When you realize that none of that is going to fill the hole in your soul, it's so beautiful because you realize that you can actually do this with the inner work, but it does. I use the word work for a reason. Like it doesn't just happen overnight. Like there's actions and things, like you said, like you go for regular runs, you meditate, you connect to something greater than you. Like all of that stuff is helping to foster that channel and that openness and that connection back to your own heart.
Yeah, and I talk about a sobergasm because when I first went,
Ooh.
yeah, it's like a bit of a funny one, but when I need to trademark it because I keep talking about it.
100%.
When I first went sober, I wasn't about 6 months in. I was having a wee, and I came out the toilet. Well, actually, while I was having a wee, I was like, have this like euphoric rush through my body, and I was like, what is going on here? Like I couldn't work it out, and my missus sort of I came out the toilet, and she was like, what you been doing in there? And I was like, I just had this most amazing like feeling, and I realized that everything was aligned. So like I have these. So if my nutrition, my sober sleep, my movement, my connection with people, my spirituality, my journaling, my goals, my alignment, my family, everything was great at that moment. And I think I reckon that exists. And I sort of had a semi one like about 6 months after that, so a second one. So I've realized now that that's sort of almost what we're chasing. So that first sip of drink or whatever is almost like the shortcut to that.
Yes.
So I think, again, that does live inside us. It's just for us to try and pull it out. And I think for me personally now, I know if I'm not feeling like that, one of these cogs ain't working, whether it's connection or sleep or nutrition or whatever. The game of life for me is to try and fill those bars up as much as I can at the same time to try and achieve that feeling. I think that's the ultimate alignment.
I love that. And are you consciously aware of that now? So if you are feeling, I describe it as being off the beam, or using your language, misaligned, do you then do a mental checklist of, well, how is my sleep at the moment? How much time have I had with my wife, etc.?
Definitely, 100% all the time. Yeah, I'm constantly thinking about that. Like I think a lot ahead. So I'm already thinking about what I'm going to do tonight, what I'm going to eat tonight, what time I'm going to go to bed tonight, what I'm going to do in the morning. Like I'm always mentally sort of one step ahead of myself, and I know where I'm going to catch up, or I know where I'm going to slip up at the weekend on eating something I shouldn't have done, and what it's going to do to me on Monday, and how I'm going to feel. But by Wednesday, I'll be back in the game, and kind of being relaxed with it, because you can't be too militant, otherwise you just wouldn't live a life. But it's good to be aware of.
Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. I thought I was one of the only people that did that, but I'll like literally have in my head at the start of the day when I'm going to be eating all my meals, what they're going to look like, where I need to go, what I need to, like, just this constant planning in the mind. I totally relate. Hey, Matt, I recently saw a post that you put on Instagram where you were talking about sober parenting and the difference that you've experienced being a sober parent versus a parent that still drinks. Can you tell me, what have you noticed? What's the difference there?
Wow. I mean, there's a lot. I think the main one is that the stories you tell yourself and your kids about what they like doing. I used to be a nightmare for like taking it, like, I said to you at the start off air, it's 30 degrees here. It's really beautiful weather. So like I'd be in a pub garden, and then I'd be saying to the kids, we'll go to that pub garden. You love it there, and your friend, whoever, who would enter generic person who's got a kid, can come along, so that you can go run around the field, so that we can drink, and then build a story around how much they love it at that pub, where they don't love it at that pub. They love playing crazy golf with you, or they love being at the cinema with you, or they love being at home with you, but having your attention on whatever they're doing. So I think that's one of the biggest ones for sure. But also everything really, like from being here more, like being at home all the time rather than being out, especially when I was in that fashion world, I wasn't really at home that much. Whereas now I'm always here. So there's that, there's being physically present and mentally present. There's being involved with everything that they're doing, they're learning at school, like everything, giving them the time, reading a book at night. Yeah, I think the kids also see how fit I am trying to be. So they always know in the morning, like they'll always say, "Oh, you going for a run? You're fit and healthy," and like they sort of say these sort of little sayings to me. We have a little handshake together, and like they see it. So they're seeing that every day. So that's gonna have such a knock-on effect. Going back to what I said about my parents, lovely people, but I had a bar in the house. hopefully now I'm aware of what that did to me. Therefore, I'm trying to be the beacon of change to make it so that my kids grow up in a house where they see their dad go for a run every morning. So hopefully that has that.
Absolutely, it will. Like monkey see, monkey do is generally the way that unfolds. And I imagine that you're just so present for the little moments, right?
Yeah, and even having, because we've got a baby now, so we've got 14 is the oldest to 9 months, maybe 10 months tomorrow.
Wow.
So she's Kiki Pearl. She's super cute, and she's just noticing everything about her. And I think with the boys, because I've got 2 boys that are now, I don't know how old, they keep changing the age, 7, 8, something like that, 6, 8, and I wasn't around too much when they were, partly because I was scarred about having a baby boy, because I sort of was running away because I wanted that first 6 months of their life to go past so that I could try and sleep at night. So I wasn't really around for them. Whereas now we're very settled. We've got a lovely house that we love, like being in with the baby, and she loves it. We love it. And it's really quite sort of precious.
Yeah, it's just a completely different, unique experience. And I think what a beautiful gift that you're giving those children to show them that there's another way of living. That's just awesome.
Yeah, that is.
So, Matt, you got sober in April 2020, and in a relatively short space of time, you kind of just like took the world of social media by storm, and you've built this epic brand. I'd love to know, what inspired you to go down this path?
With Dryy?
With Dryy, with Better Life Guy, like you've got over 70,000 followers on Instagram to date.
Yeah. So basically, I sort of knew everybody by first name in the sober world, as you do, because it started off, there was like 5 people doing it. And I actually thought, I remember going on a run and thinking, right, I'm going to start an Instagram account. I bet you nobody's doing that. And there was like literally 5, 6 people at the time. Obviously now there's like thousands. I just wanted to do something that was different. Like I'd come from this central London fashion world, which I sort of loved I loved it. That's why I went into it. It was like the fashion shows, the champagne, the cocaine. Like that's why I went into that lifestyle, because I loved it until it bit me in the arse. And I was like, I want to do something on like that sort of big stage that is different. It's going to capture people's attention. That isn't just talking about going sober and being boring and, just going along with because people think sober people are boring. I think, I wanted to do something to change that. So I wanted to make it bright pink. I wanted to make it fun. I wanted to make it different. I wanted to do some crazy boat party on the Thames and do something a bit different to shake it up a little bit and make it more accessible for people that either don't want to give up forever or just want to be intrigued about what sort of lies behind the curtain. I think that was the idea. And that took off. So it took off quite quickly. And I think it was coincided with the COVID situation, because we came out of lockdown and people were sort of starved of connection, I think. So then my first boat party was in 2021, I think. And that sold out really quickly. And I was like, wow, people want to do this stuff. And it's just gone on from there, really. And then Dryy came along because I was good friends with Andy Ramage, and he's like someone I've sort of looked up to and respected, but we both do things very differently, but I thought we'd make quite a good partnership. And I wanted to do something that was going to be the thing that got me out of my career and into this lane. And I wanted him to sort of help me, because I didn't really want to do it on my own. I thought with someone else who's like responsible, we can, I can talk about ideas, and just before I go and jump from like a really good job into nothing, make sure it's the right thing. So we'd spent a long time doing it, and then it happened. It's not even 8 months old. I think it's 8 months old now, Dryy. So that's been a crazy journey, and that's been probably, although I've got 70,000 followers on Instagram, having over 10,000 members in Dryy is a pretty big achievement, because that's
incredible.
That's all organic as well.
And for those who are listening who haven't heard about Dryy yet, it's an app, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's Dryy.
That's with 2 Ys.
Yeah,
and what would I discover on the app if I was joining and I was sober curious or wanting to just take a break from alcohol even?
So we wanted to create a space that was like your Instagram world, but instead of seeing Better Life guy pop up, and then you see your best friend from 3 years ago drinking at a bar. It's all just sober related content, or alcohol free related content that might be people from taking a break to living a mostly dry lifestyle to living 100% dry, all on there, helping each other, cheering each other on, sharing any times they've got they're feeling stressed or difficult or triggered, so there's a safe space for everybody to come together and talk, away from social media, away from algorithms, away just pure content. We do live videos in there every single day at 7:30 a.m. sort of kick you off with a bang. So that's always good from different people, me, Crystal and Andy mainly. We've got different groups for different people at different stages. So if you want to just do it as a break, come in the break group. If you want to do it mostly dry lifestyle, you can join that group. If you want to go totally sober, then there's a group for that as well. There's also starting to play around with like regional groups. So there's like UK and Australia and New Zealand. So you can talk to people locally. So that'll continue to expand. It's not just an app, so it's more of a lifestyle brand. So we do like apparel, we do events, holidays, and it's just growing and growing. We've just started doing courses last month as well, which is our new venture, which is basically for people that want to take a month off or want to change their relationship with alcohol. And we sort of do Zoom like classes on how to do that, and create a group at the same time and do live videos in there and provide additional content and try and keep you accountable and motivated, and you're doing it with teammates all at the same time. So that's going really well as well. So that's where we're at so far. So far, so good.
What a great place for people to be able to go to, because I know so many people I speak to just don't know where to start. And this sounds like you've got everything there. You've got like the connection piece, I think, is huge as well. That is so underrated, particularly if people have tried different approaches, say 12-step or something else, and it's not quite working and they're craving that connection piece. It sounds like this lifestyle brand, this community is where they could find that as well.
And it's fun. We say it's fun, positive and vibrant. That's like we kind of use those words because we want to keep that upbeat mentality, although it can be like, tough at some stage for some people. The general undertone of the whole group is fun, positive, vibrant, welcoming, and it's all free. It's free. The app is free.
Unbelievable.
So, yeah, why not come and join it?
Give it a crack. I'll make sure I pop all of the information about Dryy in the episode show notes. But I'd love to also know, tell me about Off the Sesh. This is your new passion project, isn't it?
Yeah, I wanted to do something just for men, because I was getting a lot of messages from men, sort of the same situation, literally like copy paste the same message over and over again. Like, mate, I'm struggling. It'll be like 4 a.m. Like, mate, I'm struggling in, sniffing gear on my own. I've treated had a row with my wife. I've not gone to work for 3 days. Like the same story over and over again for men. Because what happens in this country particularly is that lads go out for drinks with their mates when they're 18, they're 19, they're 20, they go for drinks and stag do's. And then what happens is people generally get married and have kids and generally get a better life, a better job at the same time, when all around the same age as 30. And then things start to get a bit tougher because you've got a pressured job, you've got baby now, you're sleeping less, you're drinking more, and it all adds up to this, builds up to this crescendo of like the age of 35-ish. Then the life sort of spits you out. You get divorced, you get ill, you have a car crash, something happens to you. And then it's like, right, I need to do something to shake it up. And or you've got to the end of it where you're just drinking. You rely on cocaine. That's causing problem. And it's like, right, I need to do something now. So that's generally where I wanted to land. And that's pretty much the space we've got. So it's a monthly group. And I wanted to provide something that I did that was cost effective for me and them. So on a scale, it's £29 a month, but every single week I do a 1 hour call. So on a Friday night. So it's intentional on a Friday night so that we all bring an alcohol-free beer to the call. We chat about different topics from drinking, drugs, sex, gambling, to building a career, purpose, meaning in life, whatever. And just generally what's happened is we've just become like mates. We're doing a walk, like a hike in August together, which will be cool, which is part of the group. There's new lads coming all the time. It's like you could dip in and out of it. You can come on for a month and then just ditch it if you want. But you get 4 hours of me, which is, if one-to-one, it's too. I don't like one-to-one stuff because it's too much money for some people. And I want to help. I'd rather help more people in an hour than one, if you know what I mean. So the reasons why I did it. And so far, it's been something that's changed my life a little bit because I've been surprised how quickly we've all become like good mates, and it's like we generally just have a laugh, which is what it should be. But equally, there's sometimes where some of the lads are like, I'm struggling here, what should I do? And usually the other lads jump in on it before I get a chance anyway, so it sort of feeds itself, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and once again, like you're coming back to that community piece, that connection that is so, so powerful when particularly when you're not drinking, but all your friends still are. And it's like, what am I going to do now? So to be able to offer that service and a place for guys to go, you know, because they may not feel comfortable going into a space that's predominantly female based is incredible. Thank you for your service. That's amazing, Matt.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's a highlight of my week now.
That's so awesome. Hey, I've got one more question that I love to ask all of my guests before we wrap up the show. Matt, what are your 3 non-negotiables that you implement in your life today that allow you to live happy, joyous, and free?
It's easy for me, really. Sleep, I'm a nightmare for. My missus, I basically want to go to bed at like 9 o'clock every night. We've compromised on 10. She would rather go at 11. But I have to. I'm a nightmare for turn the lights off. I'm turning the TV off. I'm brushing my teeth. I'm in bed. She's still pottering around doing what, mum like. And I'm sort of like making really obvious hints like, I want to go to bed. So I make sure I get my sleep like every night. And if I don't, then I need to catch up the next night. So that's a non-negotiable for me. Movement of some sort I have to do. So if I haven't had a run I've been injured recently, so I had 2 weeks where I couldn't run. I could feel like I was getting stressed out, so I needed to do that. So that's my second one. What's my third one? But probably be the family time thing. So my wife's been away this weekend, so today is more about spending time like with her to try and catch up on that, so that's back in motion, if you know what I mean. So they're my 3 things.
They're awesome. Sleep, movement, and time with your family.
Yeah.
I love that. I think all of those are equally important. And I love what you were saying about having your pie chart that was equally weighted. I'm going to work towards creating something similar for myself, I think. So, Matt, we say here on Behind the Smile that when we recover loudly, no one need suffer in silence. So thank you. I'm beyond grateful for you giving me your time today, for sharing your story with the audience, and for everything that you do in the sober space. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Thank you for having me on, and thank you for everything you do. I think you do an amazing job, and this podcast is amazing. I'm really grateful for you having me on. So thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
A big thank you for tuning in today. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button and leaving a review. Every review helps this podcast become more discoverable, meaning more people can hear these stories of strength and hope. Together, we will continue to remove the stigma around mental health, trauma, and addiction. Remember to reach out to those you care about, and I'll see you next time.